There are many kinds of progress and many stories to be told of our city, Austin. More and more cars and more miles traveled each year.
Tremendous population growth taking place in Austin right now.
As we grow, people will continue coming, whether or not we build the housing for them. You know, Austin will grow and develop, and the question is, how do we want to accommodate the additional growth?
The model that we've been currently developing and designing cities doesn't work anymore.
If you expect the Texas of old Western movie, Austin will be a pleasant surprise.
And that's what I'm afraid of in the future, is my kids missing out on why Austin was great in the first place.
To appreciate Austin's present and its future, you have to take a moment to understand its past. The mix of old and new Austin is something that surrounds us, but unless you look up, you may never notice. So a tour of Austin.
That's right, that's right.
Native Austinite Harrison Eppright has been giving tours of his hometown through Visit Austin for a decade. He's sort of a walking history book.
Starting with in 1835 when Austin started out as a little settlement on the banks of the lower Colorado River. Exactly, right. Waterloo, exactly.
We set out on a walking tour to see the mix of old and new downtown. Harrison proved to be the right man for the job. As we strolled down 5th Street, he reminisced on days past.
Well, I can remember as a boy when these were mostly warehouses through here.
We turned down San Jacinto.
Glad to see you. Excellent.
Traveling to the streets synonymous with Austin.
East 6th Street was multicultural before multicultural was an act, was a word, because East 6th Street had businesses owned by Jews, by Greeks, by Lebanese, the first Chinese-owned restaurant.
And like other parts of downtown, Harrison has fond memories of old 6th Street.
When I was a boy, up until 1964, the Ritz was the only theater in downtown Austin in which blacks could patronize.
Wow.
We had to sit in the balcony. Our parents never told us why we went through a separate entrance after we paid to enter the theater.
You may not notice at first glance, but 6th Street is pretty unique.
We have a street that escaped the, quote, progress, if you will, of the 60s and 70s and 80s, in which 75% of the buildings are still standing on this street from, let's say, they were built prior to 1900, and they're still standing.
It wasn't long before more people were itching to stop Harrison.
Oh, my word.
It's so nice seeing you.
Good to see you. How are you doing, sir?
After a brief hello, it was back to business.
She is the Grande Dame because she is the Driscoll Hotel, our first truly grand hotel in the city of Austin.
Despite its rich history, the Driscoll came close to demolition in the 1970s.
This was just considered old. It was considered out of date, out of style.
We continued to Congress Avenue, where buildings date back to the 1800s and 1900s, peppered between modern structures.
Like the Compass Bank building, which we just passed right there. I think that's probably from the 1990s, I think. But people are calling that old Austin now.
Oh, wow.
That's right.
If the 90s are old, that makes me feel very
I'm ancient. I am ancient by now.
But as Harrison says, that's the great thing about history.
History is not just about the past. It's about the present, and it's about the future.
As we walked back to the visitor center, Harrison talked about what it was like to grow up in East Austin and what he thinks about the city's future. He's excited. He thinks Austin is just going to get better. But then he told me the one thing he worries about.
Can I afford to live in this city? I'm 62. Can I afford to live in this city when I'm 80? You know, yeah, I worry about that. It's heartbreaking. It's almost feeling like you're being left behind. Yeah, you know, almost feel, to me, it makes me feel like, you know, I'm being left behind. And here it is, I'm promoting the city.
So how did we get here? What happened, or better yet, what failed to happen to create the affordability crisis in Austin? To find the answer, I sat down with former Mayor Will Wynn, who served on council, then as mayor from 2000 to 2009.
There was a pretty heavy
dose of don't build it and they won't come.
That sentiment applied to roads and homes.
Austin was the only city that for a long time effectively was constraining the supply of housing. That, a project would come forward to the Planning Commission and then the City Council, and it might have been a 200-unit, apartment complex. It would work from an architectural and an engineering standpoint, but it wouldn't work politically because some neighbors might not want 200 apartments near their home, right? And so it would go to the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission would try to ease the pain a little bit. And what if we just reduce that to 150 units? And then it'd come to the City Council, there'd just be another fight about the 150 units, and we'd reduce it again to 100 units. And so we never talk about those units that never got built because of that pressure, right? To always reduce the scale of a project. And if you add up all the projects that went from 200 units to 100 units, it would be disgusting to think about how many housing units could have been built.
And we can also play the could've, would've, should've game with roads.
But Austin didn't get its, sort of fair share of, say, major road infrastructure dollars. Austin's about 6% of the state's population. There clearly were a couple of decades we weren't getting 6% of the multi-billion dollars worth of, new road starts, for instance. And even if you're opposed to new roads, well, how about the red lights on Ed Bluestein or 360 or until recently going out to our airport, right? So it's not necessarily building new roads, we just missed the chance to even improve what we have.
Those missed opportunities have turned into today's traffic headaches, something Chris Betts experienced firsthand trying to get downtown.
We want to tell you how long it's going to take to get from this home in Round Rock to a typical job in downtown Austin, and how much it's going to cost. A little background history about this toll lane. It broke ground in 2013. The project was supposed to be completed a mere 2 years later in 2015. Clearly, it took a lot longer than expected. So after many delays, it didn't open until the end of October of this year. Okay, I am pulling into the convention center, and the time is 9:05. That means that it took me less than 50 minutes to get from Round Rock to downtown. Using about $5 worth of gas and an average toll fee at $5, that's about $10 to use the express lane.
How do we determine what the city looks like?
I would say a once-in-a-generation opportunity to really influence the way the city looks going forward.
It's called CodeNEXT, how the guidelines we're creating right now will shape the city's layout down the road.
And can you commute easily by bus from the suburbs? Chris Betts tests it out when Boomtown returns.
Despite the traffic, Austin just has so much more to offer when it comes to the festivals that we have in town with South by Southwest, ACL. There's just always something to do.
It's got, for lack of a better word, cool stuff. I mean, you've got Town Lake, the new library, the coffee shops, things, relatively kid-friendly stuff.
Welcome back to this special edition of the KVUE Night Beat.
So now we know that downtown Austin really didn't start to grow until the 2000s.
Austin will grow and develop, and the question is, how do we want to accommodate the additional growth and the additional people?
One answer to that question, at least from the city's point of view, is called CodeNEXT.
Ashley breaks down what it is and why you should be paying attention to it.
The Austin we know today is a lot different from Austin 20 years ago. In 1997, downtown wasn't a destination, and it certainly wasn't a place where a lot of people lived. And chances are, in the next 20 years, Austin will change again.
If you double in population every 23 to 27 years for 180 years, it's constant, and so therefore it's predictable. And so not to plan for something that's perfectly predictable is irresponsible.
Part of the city's plan to prepare is CodeNEXT. Now, to make sure this doesn't just sound like white noise, let's strip away all of the voices who say it's good or bad, and let's just talk about what the heck it is. 5 years ago, the City Council adopted Imagine Austin, a 30-year comprehensive vision for the city, and that plan called for the Land Development Code to be rewritten. What's the Land Development Code?
The Land Development Code is a lot of things. It covers zoning. And so at its core, it affects what can be built in Austin, how much, where. It's really the look and feel of our city. So when you step outside, anything that you see is a result of the Land Development Code.
There's a saying among developers: the longer a city's land development code, the more expensive it is to build there.
Welcome to the City of Austin Planning and Zoning Department.
This is Austin's Land Development Code, and that's not it. There are files and files of neighborhood plans and conditional overlays. In other words, it's pretty expensive to build in Austin.
So our last massive code rewrite was in 1984. For context, Ronald Reagan was president at that time. The first Macintosh PC was released, and Austin looked really different.
This rewrite could change the face of Austin. The current draft increases density, meaning more people living on smaller lots and in mixed-use developments. Some see it as a way to address the housing shortage, while others argue the current housing market will just produce expensive homes on smaller lots. And that's why what you think about it matters.
Just today, city staff announced they are delaying the release of the third draft of CodeNEXT. It was set to come out on November the 28th, but they need more time to review public comments and make changes. So now it won't be released until February the 12th, and it will still have to go through citizens' commissions before heading to council for final approval. So in the meantime, that just leaves us with what we have right now, and that takes us back to Chris Betts and her journey trying to get to downtown.
And welcome back. We begin part 2 of our transportation experiment. I've got my day pass. This cost me $2.50, and it lets me go anywhere on a bus all day. So pretty cheap. So I'm going to give them this, and we are going to see how long it takes to get downtown and how much it costs. Okay, so we just finished the first leg. I am hopping off. We are right now at Tech Ridge bus stop. I'm gonna pop over to the next bay so I can catch the 801, which is a rapid transit bus. So let's see if we can get downtown fast. All right, so here we are. We made it to our final destination, Republic Square, off the 801. The time is now 9:15. We left the house at 7:25 this morning. That means this total trip, taking only the bus from Round Rock to downtown, took a little under 2 hours, but it only cost me $2.50.
We're in the Miller development tonight. A muggy evening here in Central Texas. A look at your forecast, and we'll preview Thanksgiving next.
The reason we've survived for 30 years and thrived in 30 years is the focus we had on creativity.
Austin's creative influencers using the city's problems to merge technology and the arts when Boomtown returns.
I'm more in the hardware side, so you have like Apple, Qualcomm, IBM, all those industries. It's great. Pretty much for my career, I can just pretty much stay in one place my whole life if I really wanted to, and that's Austin.
I really like the combination of nature with city and how you can be in the hustle and bustle of downtown, but then like right there's the green belt, so like you can just go get a quick getaway for a bit.
Good evening from the Miller development, formerly the Miller Airport, Robert Miller Airport. And when you think of Boomtown, you think of this brand new Alamo Draft House, the floating umbrellas, really cool spot. What hasn't been cool, the weather. Today, the temperature 12 degrees above average. We're in the 60s and 70s right now, and the clouds are starting to work back in. And by tomorrow morning, we'll be looking at an overcast sky, even some patchy areas of fog, sprinkles, light drizzle. 66 in the morning, another warm afternoon, about 13 degrees above average. May be gloomy in the morning with those clouds and fog around, but the sun will be out, and that combined with a southeast wind will boost temperatures above average area-wide in the 80s. 70s on Saturday with a midday cold front moving through the area. The front comes through the region dry. Temperatures drop throughout Saturday evening, Saturday night in the 40s. We're only in the 60s on Sunday. We're only in the 30s and 40s for Sunday night into Monday morning. Molds in the high count, your allergy forecast from the KVUE Storm Team found every day in the Statesman. So morning clouds will give way to a breezy, warm afternoon. Sun in the forecast at 84. 60s for tomorrow night, and then 70s for Saturday with a gusty north wind behind this front. And you'll know when the front arrives. It'll be about midday, 11 a.m. noon on Saturday, with temperatures falling in the 40s by Sunday morning. Breezy and 64 on Sunday, 70s on Monday. Another front on Tuesday. That's going to bring our temperatures down just a bit. At this point, mostly sunny to partly cloudy and highs in the 70s for Thanksgiving.
All right, it is day 3 of our transportation experience. I've been excited about this one all along. This will be riding the Metro Rail. Just a heads up, I went to buy my ticket, and you have to use the app if you want to pay with your debit or credit card. I downloaded that, paid $3.50 for a day pass, so we are good to go. All right, not too shabby. 40 minutes to take it from Lakeline all the way down to here at the Convention Center, which is our final destination. You add in the 20 minutes it took to drive from my house in Round Rock to the station, and that's at 60 minutes. It's just a little bit more than it took us to get from the house downtown on the Mopac Express lanes. Total cost of this trip, $2 in gas and $3.50 for a rail pass.
Boomtown continues at one of the new big high school football stadiums that's been built in the area in the last 20 years. I'm Mike Barnes. High school football playoff highlights are next. Boomtown continues here at one of the many new big high school football stadiums that's been built around the Austin area. Leander, Cedar Park, Georgetown, Pflugerville, Manor, Del Valley, San Marcos, and right here at what is affectionately known as the Palace in Round Rock, they had a playoff game tonight. It was a dandy with Cedar Ridge taking on Aiken. Cedar Ridge is tough. They are tough to beat. They came out early with Simi Bakari leading the way. His show was a dandy. He has 3 first-half touchdowns, and Cedar Ridge romps to the first playoff win of the year. 63-14 is the final. Let's head to Pflugerville. Stony Point taking on Manor at a neutral site, playing at the field, and the Tigers loved that. Tyler Cleveland was the early star of the game for Stony Point. He gets the touchdown run, and Manor never showed up at this game. 45-0. Stony Point will play here in Round Rock in round 2 next week. How about Lago Vista? They're in Bastrop taking on Edna, and the Cowboys control the first half. Vikings hoping to get a little bit of playoff magic, but Edna dominates the first half, and they wind up getting the win in this game, eliminating Lago Vista from the playoff run. Some tough night for other playoff teams around the area. Rouse is also a loser, so is Cameron Yo and Luling. But how about Mason, Shiner? They're going to play each other next week. And Platonia all win and advance to the second round. Fun times here at the high school football playoffs. Lots more action coming your way tomorrow. Friday, Football Fever, 10:25 tomorrow night.
For some kids, Austin doesn't look much different down the road.
So if you walk out of your door when you're a grown-up, what are you going to see?
I'm gonna see grass, and I'm gonna see some toads.
The city's future, according to the next generation, when Boomtown continues.
Chris Betts here in the Storm Chaser, and I am on Loop 360. If I turn the camera around, you can see the traffic is really clear this late at night. But we all know it's not like that during the day. As you saw, I explored our rapid transit options, our rail line, and the new express lanes, but they are not enough when it comes to transportation here in Boomtown. So here is what the future of transportation in Austin looks like. There's an old saying, you can live in your car, but you can't drive your house. And here in Austin, that hits pretty close to home. Plans for relief are in the works on 4 of the city's biggest thoroughfares: Mopac, Loop 360, 183 South, and I-35.
Lower I-35 through downtown and end part of the scarring that interstate has put on our community.
Senator Kirk Watson unveiling the $8.1 billion plan to add toll lanes to 35, 2 on each side of the interstate. The so-called Capital Express project would stretch 33 miles on 35. from Williamson County to Hayes County. But don't expect relief too soon. This one's still in the planning stage until at least 2020. So let's pop over to Mopac, where toll lanes north of downtown are finally open. The next step, more toll lanes going south. Yep, another Mopac Express Lane project is in the works. It was derailed by a Save Our Springs lawsuit in 2016 over environmental concerns. But an Austin judge recently ruled in favor of this project. Original plans included 2 toll lanes in each direction on Mopac, from downtown to SH 45. But the next phase of public input won't start until 2018. Happening right now is the 183 South project. Crews broke ground in 2016 and have been working ever since to build a non-stop signal-free route as a north-south alternative to I-35. Work should be wrapped up by 2020. And the total cost, $743 million. Which takes us to our final major improvement on Loop 360. Like 183 South, the goal is to eliminate stoplights at the 4 biggest intersections. Instead, they'll build grade separations, similar to an overpass, cutting down the time drivers wait watching red lights turn green.
They say all roads lead to home, and for many people, that's Austin. It's a special place of creativity, as you can see here by the Waller Creek light-based art show. And as we look into the future, it seems the possibilities are endless. The class of 2030, also known as today's kindergartners.
What do you see on the title page?
Tried to help me figure out what the future of Austin will look like.
That is a hard question. There might be some more houses because in downtown they keep building more and more buildings. I do not know.
So maybe the kindergartners weren't a lot of help, but it's a big question for all of us. So I went to ask a few people who may know a thing or two.
I'm the founder and CEO of Capital Factory.
Joshua Baer says Silicon Valley used to be the place for technology breakthroughs, but now it could be Austin.
The innovation coming over the next 10 or 20 years is in industries like energy and health and transportation that actually aren't the places where Silicon Valley has been the most successful so far.
He also predicts the 4 largest cities in Texas will grow into each other over the next 20 to 30 years. Stephen DeWong with AECom, who works with infrastructure like the Hyperloop, agrees.
The model that we've been currently developing and designing cities doesn't work anymore.
With Hyperloop One's plans to have a system up and running somewhere in the world by 2021, DeWong predicts it will be in the U.S. about 5 years later, and the flat Texas land is prime for Hyperloop construction.
We suspect that Texas will be absolutely one of the first ones.
And that means city boundaries aren't limited to a car drive. So when these kindergartners are graduating from high school in 2030, they could be treating Dallas and Houston like somewhere they go for lunch. But that's not quite appealing to everyone.
Most of us are a little worried about the future.
Dad Kelly Chappell has a kindergarten student this year.
My kids are 6th generation Austinites.
He wants to preserve Austin's history of art and music.
And that's what I'm afraid of in the future, is my kids missing out on why Austin was great in the first place.
But Hugh Forrest, the chief programming officer for South by Southwest, says that could all be the same thing.
I think there's a common thread there in terms of that creativity of whether they be engineers or artists. They're very, very creative people, and it's what makes Austin special.
So our future here in Austin holds a lot of possibilities, and those kindergartners might be more help than we think.
I want to be a farmer. I want to be a Navy soldier, firefighter, a teacher, police girl.
Whether the traditional...
I'm going to be a veterinarian at a zoo. I want to be a pilot of plane.
Or Austin unique.
I want to be a mime. I want to be a lizard wrangler. An artist.
The future of Austin is in good hands, even if right now there's still little.
We have covered a lot of ground in this show. If you've missed any of it, we will be posting all of it to KVUE.com.
That also includes full interviews, so you can watch as much and as long as you'd like.
And we want to hear from you. Who would you like to hear from on this topic for later editions? Thanks for watching KVUE's Live Doc.
Have a great night, and Jimmy Kimmel is coming up next.